Hi and welcome. On this channel, we break down ideas, share knowledge, and make learning simple and enjoyable. If you're someone who loves to grow and learn new things, don't forget to subscribe and join us. The moment I saw the notification light up my phone, my hands were already moving. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just stood there in my mother's kitchen, holding a casserole dish I'd driven 40 minutes to deliver, reading a text that was never meant for my eyes. My mother had accidentally forwarded it to me instead of my sister. He agreed. $80,000. Make sure Claire never finds out. I set the casserole down on the counter so carefully. Like if I moved too slowly, the world might not fall apart. Like being gentle with a ceramic dish could somehow hold together everything I thought I knew about my family. It didn't work. I need to back up. Because this story doesn't start in that kitchen. It starts the way most painful things do, quietly. Years before I understood what was happening. My name is Claire. I'm the older daughter. My sister's name is Danielle, and she is, by every visible measure, the one my mother chose. I don't say that with bitterness anymore. I say it the way you describe weather. It was raining, the sky was gray, my mother loved my sister more. It was simply the climate I grew up in. Danielle is 3 years younger than me, and she has the kind of energy that fills a room the moment she enters it. Loud laugh. Easy smile. The type of person who can walk into a party where she knows nobody and leave with 4 new best friends and 2 dinner invitations. I was never that person. I was the one with the book in the corner, the one who took longer to warm up, the one who my mother once described to her friend, and I heard this. I was 14, standing right on the other side of a door, as the serious one. You know how it is. Some kids you just connect with more. I kept that sentence inside me for a long time. Not to torture myself, but because I genuinely believed that if I worked hard enough, proved myself enough, she would connect with me too. I spent my 20s trying to earn something that should have just been given. I became an architect. Licensed. Working at a firm I was proud of, designing buildings I could point to on my drive to work. I had an apartment I paid for myself in a city I loved. I had friends, a routine, a life that was genuinely mine. And then I met Marcus. Marcus came into my life when I was 31, through a mutual friend at a dinner party I almost didn't attend. He was sitting across the table from me, and somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, he looked at me mid-sentence and said, "You have a very specific way of thinking about things. I like it. Not you're so pretty or you seem fun." He liked the way I thought. I was done for. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. We were in a park, no grand gesture, no string quartet, just the 2 of us on a Sunday morning with coffee cups and a ring he'd had custom made because he remembered me mentioning once, in passing, that I didn't like traditional solitaire settings. He'd been paying attention. I said yes immediately. Then I cried, which embarrassed me, which made him laugh, which made me cry more. I called my mother that same afternoon. Her response was warm. Excited, even. She said all the right things. She asked about the ring, asked when we were thinking for a date, said she was happy for me. I got off the phone feeling like maybe I had been wrong about us. Maybe this was the moment things shifted. I was at her house for Sunday dinner 3 weeks later when I first felt something was wrong. She kept asking Marcus questions, which I thought was good, until I noticed the questions were a particular kind, probing, slightly pointed. What does his family situation look like? Does he own or rent? And his career trajectory, does he have plans to move up or is he settled in his current position? Marcus handled it with grace. He's good with people in a way I've always admired. He answered everything directly, kept smiling, helped clear the dishes. In the car on the way home, he was quiet for a few minutes before he said, "Your mom is really trying to figure out if I'm good enough for you." I told him that was just how she was. She was protective. I believed that for another 6 months. The engagement was 8 months old when I got a call from Marcus that stopped me cold in the middle of my office. He sounded strange, contained, like he was reading from something. He told me he needed to talk to me about something important. I thought something had happened to someone in his family. I went to his apartment that evening. He handed me a drink I didn't touch, and sat down across from me and told me that my mother had contacted him. 3 weeks earlier. She'd asked to meet with him without me, said she had something she needed to discuss privately. He told me he almost called me immediately, but he wanted to hear what she had to say first. What she had to say was this. She believed their marriage would be a mistake. Not because of Marcus specifically, she was careful to say that, but because she had always envisioned Danielle with someone like him. Stable. Successful. Thoughtful. And Danielle, my mother said, had actually mentioned Marcus to her. Had mentioned that she found him interesting. And my mother thought she actually said this, that if Marcus was open to it, she would like to introduce him properly to Danielle. Give things a chance to develop naturally. She would make it worth his while to step back from the engagement. Marcus told her, in his exact words, that the conversation was over and she could see herself out. Then he called me. I sat in his apartment for a long time after he finished talking. He didn't rush me. He just sat there. Steady. While I processed what I'd heard. The strange part was that I wasn't entirely shocked. There was a layer underneath the devastation that almost felt like recognition. Of course. Of course, this is what she did. Of course Danielle told her she found Marcus interesting, and of course my mother decided that meant something she needed to act on. And of course the solution in her mind was to simply redirect what was mine. 40 years of trying to earn her attention, and she had still looked at my life and decided it would look better on my sister. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't confront her the next day either. I went home, I made tea, I didn't drink, I sat on my kitchen floor at 2 in the morning and I cried for the mother I had been trying to have my entire life. The imaginary one. The one who chose me. I want to be honest about what those weeks looked like, because I think people sometimes skip over the part where you just have to grieve. Not rage, not plan, not act, just sit inside the loss. I functioned. I went to work. I ate meals. But at night I kept returning to the same question. What is wrong with me that she never once, not once, just chose me? The answer, I eventually understood, was nothing. There was nothing wrong with me. My mother had a favorite, the way some parents do, and she had never been particularly careful about hiding it. What she had done with Marcus wasn't cruelty born from hatred. It was something almost worse: indifference. She had not even fully considered how this would land on me. I was secondary. I had always been secondary. She just hadn't bothered to hide it this time. When I finally called her, 2 weeks after Marcus told me, I didn't tell her that I knew. I want to explain why, because I think it matters. I didn't tell her because I had watched my whole life what happened when I brought grievances to my mother. She would cry. She would say I was being unfair, that I'd always been difficult, that I never gave her credit. The conversation would somehow become about her pain and my responsibility to manage it. I would leave feeling worse than when I started. And nothing would change. I was done having conversations that cost me everything and changed nothing. So I told her something else instead. I told her Marcus and I had decided to relocate after the wedding. His firm had been offering him a position in Denver for over a year, and we'd decided to take it. We were planning to move about 3 months after the ceremony. I watched her face very carefully when I said it. She covered it quickly. Smiled. Said that sounded exciting. But I saw the small hesitation. The recalculation. I had seen that look before, I just hadn't known what it meant until now. We got married in October, small ceremony, exactly what we both wanted. Danielle was there. She behaved perfectly, toasted us, hugged me at the end of the night, said she was happy for me. I looked at her across the reception table and I genuinely did not know how much she knew. Whether she had asked my mother to approach Marcus, or whether my mother had acted on a casual comment, a throwaway mention, and built a whole operation around it. I still don't know. I made a decision that night not to make Danielle the center of this story. She has her own relationship with my mother to sort out. What happened wasn't Danielle doing something terrible to me. It was my mother deciding my life was a resource she could move around. We moved to Denver 4 months after the wedding, 1 month later than I'd said. A small, pointless act of control that gave me something. Our life there was good. Marcus was thriving. I found a firm I loved even more than the one I'd left. We had more space than we'd had in years. I could breathe in a way I hadn't realized I'd been unable to before. I didn't cut off my mother completely. That might surprise some people. I reduced contact significantly. I was pleasant and brief on phone calls. I sent photos when we traveled. I showed up for the things you show up for. But I stopped trying. I stopped calling just to call. I stopped performing warmth I didn't feel in exchange for whatever fraction of attention I might receive in return. It was a strange, quiet grief, maintaining that kind of relationship. But it was also a relief. I had spent so much energy trying to matter to someone who had already decided I didn't. Releasing that effort felt like setting down something I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it had weight. The year I turned 35, my father called me. My parents divorced when I was 23, and my father and I had always been close in the easy way that some father-daughter relationships are not deep, exactly, but consistently warm. He remarried, lived in Phoenix, called me on birthdays and occasionally just because. When he called that Tuesday afternoon, his voice had something different in it. He told me he'd heard something. He wouldn't tell me his source. But he said he wanted me to know that he was aware of what my mother had done with Marcus, and that he was sorry he hadn't been more present when we were growing up, and that he thought I had turned out to be someone remarkable, and that none of what she had done reflected anything real about my worth. I sat on my back porch in Denver with the phone against my ear, and I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then I said, "Thank you, Dad. That actually means a lot." It was the simplest conversation. Barely 10 minutes. But I thought about it for weeks afterward. My mother's 60th birthday was 2 years after we moved to Denver. My aunt, my mother's sister, organized a party at a venue outside of Chicago, the city where we'd all grown up. Family flying in. Old family friends. The whole thing. Marcus and I debated whether to go. He left it entirely up to me, which is one of the things I love about him. He never tells me what he thinks I should feel. I decided to go. Not for my mother. Not really. But because I had aunts and cousins and my father's side of the family I hadn't seen in years. And because there is a version of refusing to attend your mother's 60th birthday that belongs to you, and a version that belongs to whatever she needs you to be, and I wanted to make sure the choice was mine. We flew in the day before. The party was at a renovated event space, the kind with exposed brick and Edison bulbs, very tasteful. My aunt had done a beautiful job. I saw Danielle immediately when we walked in. She looked good. She was with someone, a man she'd been dating for about a year, according to the occasional family update I'd received. She crossed the room to hug me, and the hug was real, not performed. Whatever Danielle's role in what happened, she and I had maintained a fragile but genuine warmth. I had chosen that deliberately. My mother was across the room, talking to a group of her old friends. She saw me, and her face did something complicated. Not quite guilt. More like the look of a person who has rehearsed an interaction and is now uncertain their rehearsal was sufficient. She came over. She kissed my cheek. She said I looked wonderful. She told Marcus it was good to see him, and she held his gaze for exactly half a second too long, the way people do when they're checking to see if the past is still present in someone's eyes. Marcus was perfectly, beautifully civil. We moved through the party. I talked to my aunt for a long time. I talked to cousins I hadn't seen since we were teenagers. I had a glass of wine and felt the strange dissonance of being in a room full of people you share blood with, performing the rituals of family, while holding privately the knowledge that the foundation of the thing has a crack running all the way through it. About an hour into the evening, my mother found me near the bar and asked if we could step outside for a moment. We stood on a small terrace overlooking the parking lot, which is a very unglamorous setting for a reckoning, but that's where we were. She said she wanted to talk about things. That she knew there had been distance, and she didn't want to get older without trying to close it. She said she had made mistakes, though she didn't specify which ones. She said she knew she hadn't always been fair. I let her talk. I didn't help her. I didn't nod along to fill her silences. When she stopped, I said, "I know about Marcus, Mom. I know what you did." The sound she made was small. A small intake of breath. She looked out at the parking lot. She said, "He told you." I said, "Of course, he told me." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she started to say something about how she had only wanted what was best for both of us, for all of us, and how Danielle had been struggling at the time and she'd thought. I said, "I know what you thought." There was a version of me that could have said so much more. I had imagined this conversation in many forms over the years. In some versions, I was devastatingly articulate, laying out every piece of evidence with precision. In some versions, I was furious. In some, I cried. Standing there on that terrace, I felt almost calm. Not the cold calm of suppression, but something quieter. I had already done the work of this. I had already grieved the mother I wanted, released the effort of trying to earn her, built a life that didn't depend on her validation. There wasn't much left to discharge. I told her that I forgave her. I want to be honest that this was not easy and not simple and not a gift to her. It was a thing I did for myself, because carrying anger at someone you can't change is a tax you pay from your own account. I had paid enough. But I also told her that forgiving her didn't mean returning to what we'd had before. What we'd had before wasn't actually good. I had just been too invested in the hope of it to see clearly. We could have something honest instead. Something with appropriate distance. She could know my life in the way that people who have broken trust know your life partially, with earned access, over time. She cried. I expected that. I handed her a napkin from my jacket pocket, which I realize sounds almost funny, but I had come prepared. I went back inside. Marcus was talking to my aunt. He looked across the room at me and raised his eyebrows slightly, and I gave him the small nod that means I'm okay. I'll tell you later. He smiled, and turned back to the conversation. Danielle found me about 20 minutes later. She pulled me aside, not forcefully, just lightly, the way you do when you want a private moment. She said, "Mom told me something happened between you two." She's not saying what, but she looks shaken. She paused. She's been different for a while, actually. Les, I don't know. She calls me Les. Maybe you know something I don't. I looked at my sister for a long moment. We were standing near the edge of the room, just outside the noise of the party. I said, "I think there's a conversation you and Mom need to have that doesn't involve me." I said it gently. She looked at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. I think she understood more than she let on. I think she may have always understood more than she let on. She hugged me before we left that night. Long enough to mean something. On the flight home to Denver, Marcus fell asleep somewhere over Nebraska, the way he always does on planes. I sat next to him with the window shade half up, watching the dark land pass below, and I thought about what I would tell someone who was where I had been standing in a mother's kitchen, reading a message not meant for them, holding a casserole, world rearranging itself without permission. Here is what I would say. The hardest thing about a parent who chooses someone else is that it makes you spend years trying to diagnose yourself. You look for the deficiency. You audit your personality for whatever it is that makes you less lovable, less chosen, less worth protecting. I wasted a significant portion of my 20s in that audit. There is no deficiency. Some parents have a favorite and you can be that favorite sibling and there is simply nothing you could have done differently. You were always going to be the wrong one to her, not because of something you lacked, but because of something she lacked the capacity to love her children with the same fullness. That is a heartbreaking thing to know. It is also a freeing one. I did not need my mother's accounting of my value to live well. I needed Marcus across an airplane aisle, asleep with his mouth slightly open and one of my travel magazines across his lap. I needed the firm in Denver where they had recently asked me to take on a mentorship role for the junior architects. I needed the mountains I could see from our kitchen window and the friends we'd built slowly and honestly, the kind of friends where you can sit in silence and it means something good. I needed myself, finally, without the weight of trying to become legible to someone who had decided not to read me. We landed in Denver at midnight. It was cold when we stepped outside, clean mountain cold, and Marcus took my hand in the cab line without me asking. I thought about the notification light on my phone that day in the kitchen. The casserole I'd driven 40 minutes to deliver. The message I was never supposed to see. I thought, I'm grateful. Not for the betrayal. For what I found out I was made of once I stopped trying to be enough for the wrong person. That turned out to be more than I'd known.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue. Like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. But now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would, but pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger, now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection, now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. So keep your sympathy behind you, I don't need what's left undone. Sometimes losing who once broke you is how healing has begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, rise alone again. I'll rise alone again.